what is the status of Christianity and Islam in the eyes of God in the Jewish faith? They're very, very different. The question was specifically idolatry, so I'm going to answer that question in that narrow sense. Christianity is complete idolatry. Now, when I say Christianity, to be clear, there are some Christian denominations, and there are probably over 1,000 Christian denominations. Christianity is by far the most variegated religion in the world. The majority of Christians in the world, the vast majority of the Christians in the world, worship a man as a god of a distinct person from the Father. That's very important. And they believe in what is called the doctrine of the Trinity, which was a self-inflicted wound which the church brought upon itself, a wound from which they never recovered. So therefore Christianity is absolute idolatry because, and in fact in many ways it's the worst form of idolatry, because Christians genuinely worship the God, the Father. They worship the Father as the God, as the creator of the universe, but in addition to him, they worship Jesus. Now it's very important. Almost all Trinitarians worship Jesus as a distinct person from the Father. So that means they have a husband, God, but they have on the side somebody else who they pray through, who they pray to, and therefore it's complete idolatry. And it's worse in that sense than just worshiping stones and trees and so on, because those who just worship idols and so on, they don't worship a father. They're not married to the Father. So therefore, that's why if you look at the Ten Commandments, the sin of this kind of what's called a partnership of God and someone with God is a commandment which the Torah warns us even before worshiping stones. The Ten Commandments in Exodus 20 begin, I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt from the house of bondage. Lo yihi elecha Elohim achem al panai. You shall have no other gods upon my face. And this is what Elijah was facing in 1 Kings 18. Jews who they worship Baal, but it's very clear they also worship God, the God of Israel. They worship both. And Elijah asked them, how long are you going to try to have both? This is the worst thing. So so Christianity definitely falls into the area of idolatry, utterly and completely. And the Jew, in fact, is called upon to give his or her life rather than convert to Christianity, which many thousands of Jews did throughout history. Islam has a very unique status, and again, this is an area of idolatry, in that the Islam is definitely not idolatry. Muslims worship one God, absolutely worship one God. There are Christians who make claims about Islam that they worship moon gods. That's absolute nonsense. Muslims worship one God. They're very clear about that in Surah 2, 163. It's very clearly outlined in the Quran that there is no else, just one God, and therefore Islam has a unique status in that they are not idol worshippers at all. They worship one God.
The Muslims believe in Allah, but Rabbi Potasnik would not compare anything. Would you care to mention anything?
When I did before, I'll do now also. Allah is taken from the name from Elikah. Elikah, which is, we use that word all the time. We have the same God as the Arabs. We believe in the same God, one God. So it's a paradox. See, the Christians believe in the Trinity, whatever that's supposed to mean, but it's a part of it is their God, who's the JC we call her, but that's not our belief at all. We're not allowed to believe in anything like that, and we're in better terms with the Christians generally than with the Arabs, generally speaking. but we have in common, we believe in the same God. Right? As a matter of fact, I was speaking once to Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, the greatest rabbi of our generation. He said, Allah, that's the Arabs' God, the same God that we have. He wasn't afraid to talk about it. They have the same God.
My dear brothers and sisters, I was asked the question whether Allah is the same God as the God of the Old Testament. And I would like to elaborate on that. The answer to that question is yes. The Muslim concept of Allah is exactly the same as the Jewish concept of Hashem. Therefore, no matter what you hear, some people like to claim that Allah is the moon god or whatever you hear, this is all nonsense. And, whether the word Allah was used for something else before Islam, I'm not sure, maybe. I'm not sure exactly, I'm not a linguist. But that's really not the important part. The important part is, what is Allah today? What does the word Allah mean today to Muslims? What it means today to Muslims is exactly the same what Hashem means to the Jews. That's really, there's no argument there. Our only argument between Jews and Muslims are whether Muhammad was a prophet or not. That's really the only argument. But the concept of God is, really exactly the same. And therefore, no matter what you hear, even if some Jews tell you that, we don't believe in the same God as the Muslims do, they're only saying this because of political reasons. And everybody knows this, since Jews and Muslims are at war in Israel, so some Jews may be prone to say, therefore anything Muslims do, it's wrong. They will believe in a different God, they do this. But this is all nonsense, And in fact, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, who was probably the biggest scholar that ever lived, he lived about 1,000 years ago, he said he was really critical of those who are, spreading lies just because of a political reason. And he was really critical, and he says those who say that Muslim concept of God is different and it's like idol, he says these are bad, this is, bad people. I don't know exactly which word he used, but he was really critical of those people. And he says that, in fact, the Muslim concept of God is exactly the same. And not only that, he says if a Jew needs to pray, he is allowed to go to a mosque and pray together with the Muslims, because the Muslim concept of God is exactly the same as the Jewish concept of God.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahus samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad, wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad.